I'd like to call to order the Tiverton Town Council meeting of Monday, April 22nd, 2013 at 7 p.m. this evening. I'd like us all to rise for a moment of silence for the victims of the Boston Marathon bombing and those that were injured and died in West Texas. Thank you. Before we say the pledge, I would like to ask Councilman Pelletier to read a letter from the council. Please sit. We'll stand again for the pledge in a second.
This letter is addressed to Honorable Mayor and Boston City Council Thomas Menino and the Boston City Council individually. On behalf of Tiverton's elected officials, municipal employees, and citizens, the Town Council would like to express our deepest sympathies for the people of Boston and the victims of the recent Boston Marathon bombings. Our hearts are heavy in the wake of the senseless tragedy and the toll that it will take on those involved and the community at large. There is a long road ahead, and we appreciate your diligence and dedication to the people of your wonderful city. Boston is the daytime home to many of Tiverton's residents. Daytime Bostonians include students, teachers, workers, volunteers, travelers, and fans. There is a little part of Boston in many of us throughout our neighborhoods and on this council. Our citizens make the long commute to Boston for employment. We search for education in your many world-class colleges and universities. We seek comfort and care in some of the best hospitals in the world. And we stare in awe of your art, your culture, your music, and your history. For many of us, we love our adopted city as much as our own hometown, and we stand proud and tall alongside our fellow citizens through this trying time. Boston's heroes are our heroes. They wear the uniform of righteousness. They are the first responders, community leaders, runners, and bystanders who ran towards the danger, not away from it. We all will likely remember for the rest of our lives the heroic acts of so many strangers and first responders, and we thank them for their unwavering sacrifices. The violent events at Monday's Boston Marathon continue to be a strong reminder to us that there is far more that brings us together as Americans than there is that divides us. We thank the officers of the Boston Police Department, Boston Fire, the EMTs, MBTA Transit Police, State Police, and the Massachusetts National Guard for their service and dedication to making Boston and the region a safer place to be. The people of Tiverton, Rhode Island are especially thankful for the continued diligence of city leaders, the mayor, state officials, and the people of Boston who show resolve and strength in the face of chaos and danger. We all have much to learn from your example. So we thank you all for keeping the citizens of Tiverton safe in a time of danger, calm in a time of chaos, and hopeful in a time of need. The city of Boston was looking out for everyone in the region over the past week, not only themselves, and for that, we thank you from our hearts. Please know that the town of Tiverton, Rhode Island stands firmly behind you and continues to be in your debt. And it is respectfully with great appreciation, Tiverton Town Council.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I hate to be difficult, but could we just have a motion to add the letter read by Councilor Pelletier to the agenda?
I'd like to add items.
Mr. Pelletier's letter.
So moved.
Letter from the council.
From the council?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay.
And do you also want to take a vote on the actual letter? That was just to add it to the agenda. I assume you want to
entertain a motion to formally send the letter to the City of Boston.
So move.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Councilor Gerlach.
Present.
Councilor Ruda.
Present.
Councilor Shabbat. Present. Councilor Lambert.
Present.
Councilor Roderick.
Present.
Councilor DiMederos.
Present.
Councilor Pelletier.
Yes, ma'am.
All present.
Okay, the consent agenda. Have a motion?
I'd like to add an item to the consent agenda, 3F, the 2 letters from Louise Durfee regarding non-quit school,
Councilors, you all have
which you
them.
all have.
Okay, we'll begin with the consent agenda. Approval of minutes of regular council meeting, April 8th.
Yeah, I gotta add that.
A motion to accept it.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, approval of minutes of regular council meeting, April 8th, 2013. Councilor Pelletier abstains, absent. Approval of executive session minutes of council meeting, April 8th, 2013. Councilor Pelletier abstains, absent. Receipt of minutes from the following boards and commissions: Cemetery Commission, Recreation Commission, Wastewater Management Commission. Correspondence, receive and file. CRMC public notices, Town of Hopkinton, Jamestown, Coventry, and City of Newport, resolutions opposing mandatory binding arbitration legislation for teachers, school, and municipal employees. Towns of Hopkinton, Jamestown, Coventry, and City of Newport, resolution opposing contract continuation legislation. Middletown Town Council, resolution supporting House Bill 5137 and Senate version repealing the transfer of authority of the Sakonnet River Bridge and Jamestown Verrazano Bridge from the Department of Transportation to the Bridge and Turnpike Authority. From Roger Bennis, email to DOT regarding safety problems, new entrance ramp from Main Road to 24 South and Sakonnet Bridge. And F, two letters from Louise Durfee regarding non-quit school. From Treasurer Denise Surratt, March budget and revenue reports, distribution and plans for workshop on April 29th with Planning Board. Are there any changes or deletions at this time?
Mr. President, I'd like to take off the consent agenda item CA2.C for discussion.
CA2C, okay.
And for discussion, I'd like to delete CR item 3A from the agenda.
Anything else? Okay, at this time I will entertain a motion regarding the rest of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Gerlach?
Thank you, Mr. President. I read the minutes of the March 18th Wastewater Management Commission meeting with interest, and I'd just like to put it out there. I'm wondering, it's been a little while since we've had representatives from the Wastewater Management Commission come in and brief the council regarding activities with AECom and the planning for the potential sewer system. I'd like to request, or see if there's an interest by other council members to have an update from them at an upcoming meeting.
Okay, I just asked the town administrator. I believe they are coming before us.
I'm not sure what the date is, but it might be May 28th. Yeah.
Oh, if it's already on the books, great. Then.
As a matter of fact, yes, it is May 28th.
Yeah, May 28th. Public hearing on the 28th of May.
They'll come before you on the 28th of May.
All right, great.
There's a card, actually, there's a meeting of the Wastewater Management Commission this is tonight, and there's public information that's being distributed which has that date on it. Public hearing on May 28th at 7 p.m.
Great.
Okay, if anything else on that, Mr. Gerlach? Then I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept consent agenda item 2C, Wastewater Management Commission minutes.
Second?
We have a motion and second. All those in favor? Motion passes. Mr. Lambert?
Mr. President, item 3A on the agenda, it's a CRMC, Coastal Resources Management Council, notices of applications received relative to 293 Nanaquacket Road. For those who don't have the documentation in front of them, one is a notice of an application to remove an existing float and ramp and replace it with a 4-foot by 26-foot fixed timber pier at a residential boating facility. Also remove and replace timber tie-off piles and install new boat lift. The second notice is relative to an ascent at the same property to construct and maintain a boat lift in association with an existing boating facility. I don't have any problem with either notice, and I would assume we can simply accept the fact that we, as our consent agenda, that we received and filed the notices. However, having looked at the plans, I would like to make a motion at this point that we at least refer this matter to our Harbor Commission for any recommendation they may have, because this is...
It automatically goes there and it gets posted as well. It's really a
Okay.
notice,
Okay.
a posting of their notice. But because it's sent to the council, we just put it through consent agenda so you'll realize that they are going on.
Okay.
But the Harbor Commission gets, that's the requirement.
Okay, okay, well, just briefly then, so it's clear that I'm not just being an old nosy busybody, I did call up the chairman of the Harbor Committee last night, and I said, could you tell me what this is all about? And their first notice of it was the agenda. So all I'm suggesting is, and I don't even think we need a motion then at this point, based on what you've said, Mrs. Mello, I'd like to get some background on this or some recommendation from our Harbor Commission, and it may well be at their discretion. They might offer some assistance to the applicants for whatever permits are involved here.
It is in their mailbox. They probably
Okay.
haven't picked it up.
Okay.
But these come in routinely,
Okay.
and that is the commission that they're referred to.
Okay. So I would then file a motion then noting the receipt and filing of the CRMC public notices relative to the dock proposal at 293 Nanaquacket Road.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion passes. Okay, open public forum for announcements, comments, and questions. Mrs. Pelletier.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Last Tuesday, I spent about 8 hours at a meeting on the Tourism Council, Newport Tourism, and it was sort of a wish list, where does it go, what can be done to improve the whole thing, and ideas were tossed around, and it was again pointed out the importance of tourism, which is about the third largest industry in Rhode Island, and especially down here on the shore-based communities, it's even more vital, which made me think of what Tiverton can do to utilize that wonderful gift that we have. We have very, very little commercial industry. We have the assets of the beaches. There is great need for hotel space down here, and in some sort of fateful way of God never sleeps, he actually sent us a proposal from the Carpionata Corporation that will include a hotel, and they seem to be doing hotels quite well. They have the Crown Plaza, which is in Warwick, and they're long Rhode Island company, so I think maybe we should try to listen to them, to boost our tax base. And we should welcome them, smile at them. And speaking of smiling, it was pointed out that communities that smile at their tourists, that are helpful, give instructions and that, flourish. They collect more taxes, and here we go, and we should smile. And we do get about the $100,000 in the meal tax rebate, which, doing the rough math, is about, since we have about, what, 6,000 living units or whatever households, it's probably about $20 a household. So your smile does count on the pocketbook. So again, let's be open-minded and let's welcome people. In our long-range plan, we should put in some sort of investment that would actually draw people to us. And we have so little extra money that anything we collect from maybe developing things on Sousa Road, which is a very undeveloped area right now in town, we could just flip a little of that money and do some nice things. And my thought is that we have this great big tax load that to an extent the state and the federal government puts on everybody, and we can't think of ourselves anymore as a little rural bedroom town. Then our monetary needs are mandated, and they're outstripping sort of the reality of what the homeowner taxpayer can come up with. There are tons of for sale signs in town, as you all know, especially down in the south end where I just see them and the houses aren't moving. Some of them are very, very long-time Tivertonians, and that's sad. So whatever decisions we make on furthering this town along, we should think of those, and we should be open-minded, and we should sort of do it that everybody can afford to live here, and not just everything being paid by the property tax owner. We should, in a nice way, develop along different avenues. And it's going to be years before the industrial park will be generating anything I think that's worthwhile generating. So if we have somebody, a fairy godmother, fairy gods never sleep or whatever, coming in offering to do something for us, let's smile and just do our best and you know, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mrs. Pelletier. Roger Bennis?
Yes, I have two items that I'd like to bring to the attention of the council. One is the Route 24 south entrance from Main Road. I'd like to request that the town council refer that item to Chief Blakey for review and appropriate action to prevent the dangers of the Route 24 south entrance from causing accidents. The new entrance ramp has corrected one problem, the problem of vegetation that blocked the visibility at the old entrance ramp. However, the new entrance ramp that is nearing completion appears to have nearly all the same problems that the old Route 24 south entrance ramp had, including 1, a slope at the end that causes a visibility problem, 2, a guardrail that blocks the vision of all drivers except those driving trucks or SUVs, an angle of approach at the merger that provides poor visibility, 4, inadequate distance to provide a safe merge, and 5, believe it or not, a stop sign that will create rear-end accidents on the ramp and rear-end accidents for vehicles that do not accelerate from 0 to 70 miles per hour in 8 seconds flat. Some of the problems cannot be corrected at this time, although they could have been corrected when I first advised the DOT of the problems last November. But some problems can and should be corrected in order to prevent accidents. I believe that Chief Blakey could examine the entrance ramp before it opens and could possibly convince the DOT to correct some of the problems. The correctable problems would be essentially removing the stop sign, because the stop sign at an entrance ramp to an expressway does not make any sense. And also, the guardrail could be corrected. You don't need a guardrail to prevent the drop of 8 inches. So they could remove the last 20 feet of the guardrail and leave nothing. Or if they're so worried about somebody dropping a whole distance of a matter of inches, they could put up one of the steel cable guardrails that they've been so busy putting along the rest of Route 24. That's item number 1. Number 2, the Saconnet Bridge toll hearing. The Rhode Island House Finance Committee will have a hearing at the State House in Providence on Thursday, April 25th at 1 p.m. This is one of the few chances that we will have the opportunity to speak directly to the legislators that are attempting to steal $19 million a year from people who travel over the Saconnet Bridge. Buses are available and will be leaving the park and ride lot on Fish Road at 11:30 a.m. on April 25th. I have recently discovered that I was inaccurate when I wrote several letters to the editor indicating that 17 million of the 19 per million toll would be used on bridges other than the Secaunet Bridge. Actually, 19 million of the total 19 million per year would be used to fund other roads and bridges. Because if and when the Secaunet Bridge is turned over to the Rhode Island Bridge and Turnpike Authority, the responsibility for maintaining the bridge will be given to the Rhode Island Bridge and Turnpike Authority, and the DOT will have the $2 million per year maintenance expense available to spend on other roads and bridges. So really, they're going to spend the 19 of 19 million on other bridges. The toll hearing appears to have been scheduled at 1 p.m. in order to make it difficult for people to attend without losing a day's pay. So it is important that those who can attend should attend, to make it clear that we now know that the purpose of the toll is to raise 19 million to be used on other roads and bridges. I brought along some of the flyers here, and I would hope that, Nancy, have you had a chance to get it put up on the town's website? I sent you an email earlier today.
I don't recall your email, but I did get it distributed to the council, and it's posted here. We'll see that it gets on the website.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Thank you, Mr. Bettis. Yes.
If I could just make a note to his point number one. I received an email, I'm not sure if it was Friday, from...
Jim, could you speak up a little?
I received an email Friday, I believe it was, from the DOT requesting information from us, what our feelings are regarding that and Mr. Bennis's complaint. And I forwarded it to the police chief, and we are going to go view it and possibly meet with the bridge maintenance person to decide.
Chief,
Thank you.
Want to add anything to that?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Probably discuss it.
Okay. Is there something you would like to? Okay, Chief. I keep seeing you moving around, and I said, the Chief has something.
Hiding back there. Approximately, if I may, Mr. President, approximately 6 weeks ago, I approached Barbara Pelletier to do an honor guard flag for the police department. Today, she's presented me with this flag. I'd like to show it and thank you publicly for your efforts. It's a beautiful flag, and I'd like to display it if I could more briefly.
Yes.
Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome. That's an act of kindness. But I do expect lifetime immunity to a left on the bottom of Lawton Avenue.
We'll look into that. Thank you very much.
Public hearings and public presentations. We have a presentation from Brian Ackley, Innovative Storage and Filing, Providence, Rhode Island. Brief presentation on the shelving for the vault in the clerk's office.
Good evening. Yes, my name is Brian Ackley.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to move the mic a little closer to you.
Good evening.
Thank
My
you.
name is Brian Ackley with Innovative Storage and Filing in Providence. We're a provider of space-saving storage and filing equipment. We've done work with a number of the town halls in Rhode Island in the vaults. And Nancy had asked me to come in, take a look at your vault, to see if there's a way of getting more storage in that space. It came in, surveyed the space, found out that there was no room for any more vital records in the vault. It was totally full. There was no room for land evidence expansion, or another one of the issues was the older books were being preserved, and when they preserved the books, they put plastic sleeves on the documents, so you go from one book to two books, and she was out of space for those as well. So we came in. I don't know how many people are familiar with movable shelving, but what we do, we take what you store, we put it up on shelving that moves back and forth on tracks, so you're typically able to double your storage capacity within the same space. Within the vault here, we're able to get 50% is the floor plan that we developed. The green indicates the existing shelving that's in the vault. The yellow here is going to be the new vital records space, which has to be locked separately from the rest of the records. We're going to increase capacity in that area by 50%. We're going to provide capacity for 78 of the books on flat rollers to protect them. And then we're going to increase capacity for the land evidence by about 60% without adding 1 square foot to the vault. The pricing we had put together was a national contract, national IPA, which is a pre-bid contract, which is available to all municipalities and school districts. And that's basically it.
Okay. You want to add something, Madam Clerk?
Just that we're really trying to make room in there and to continue to preserve some of the old books. It really is the history of Tiverton in there. And we did have 3 different vendors. It's later on in the agenda. It's not necessary to discuss it this time. But I do want to say that it's funded through the Historical Records and Technology account. When each time we do a recording in town, $1 goes into this account, which is mandated to continually keep up with your records. There are some fascinating old records in there, and they really, unfortunately, this isn't the cure-all for the vault, but it'll probably get me through retirement. It'll get us to 5-10 years, but it's not really the cure-all. There are other sections, but we're trying to take it as funds provide.
And we can expand that in the future as well. So,
thank you, Brian.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
I can leave that with you.
Sure, thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Advertised public hearings. Public hearing. Proposed amendments to the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 15, Drinking Water Reservoirs, Section 15-1 through 15-5. And then a resolution by North Tiverton Fire District supporting any and all measures to restrict motorized recreational activity on Stafford Pond. And B, a letter sent by legislators for assistance in obtaining a meeting with DEM Director Coit. We'll start with the public hearing portion first on the proposed amendment. Anyone wishing to speak in the public may come forward now.
Hi, my name is Jim Charette. I live on the pond and have done so for 23 years. I'm not thrilled about the tournaments myself for the number of boats that are on the pond, but I also do enjoy the use of the waterfront. So I'm a little concerned that the riparian owners may also lose their rights under some of these programs, which would be quite a problem, I'm sure, for everybody who lives on the pond. You're talking, I'm pretty sure you'd be talking lawsuits against the town, loss of value of property, front owners. Probably would not go over well with the people who live on the pond. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Ramatowski, Chairman of the Conservation Commission, and also I'm speaking here tonight as a citizen who uses the water from that pond. And for the record, I'm not a fisherman, I'm not even a boat owner, so that part of it is not something that I'm really that familiar with or want to talk about in any extent, but I'm not opposed to those activities either. I think what we have to look at is the context in which they're occurring, which is on a drinking water supply. As we know, this pond is the only drinking water supply in the entire state that has a public access boat ramp. And there have been documented problems with such ramps in the past as a vector for invasive species, for increasing the level of activity on bodies of water. And I think we have to be very careful about that, and this ordinance is designed to address some of those issues. These tournaments, which the ordinance is largely concerned with, is really the only intensification of use on this pond over the last few years that we're aware of because of the lifting of the ban for the small electric motors, and then the DEM now allows these very large boat motors to be used on the pond. Everyone else, the neighbors, are under very strict rules to improve their septic systems, to do other things to try to improve the water quality, and then we're faced with this, which is the one negative, the one problem that's been imposed on us in this time frame where we're really trying to protect the water there. It's not as if there aren't other choices for these people. If they don't like the rules that are imposed on the pond for the benefit of public health, they can go elsewhere. They can fish elsewhere. There are other ponds and places that have the species and that allow boats of this size. But we shouldn't be doing that on our water supplies. It's also true that the boat ramp was shut down for a period of time around the 9/11 time frame because there was concern about possible contamination, terrorist threats, and of course the earth didn't stop revolving. It wasn't a disaster from anyone's point of view, and then about a year later it was reopened. So it is possible for the people that use this for these recreational uses to go elsewhere and not threaten the drinking water supplies that we have. In particular, some of the things in the ordinance that we really need to do and that are there are the controls about who actually is going to be on the pond. Previous to this, we have no idea who the people are, how many people are coming. It can overtax that little area where people can park. We don't know, and we don't have any facilities set up to handle bathroom requirements for these people. This would correct that. It would have a police officer stationed there to maintain order, to make sure everything is followed correctly, including parking rules. And I think it's important to realize, again, that if you go to other reservoirs, like the Quabbin Reservoir or the Scituate or even North Watuppa, you are not allowed to do this kind of thing. You're not allowed to boat. You're not allowed to put anything on there without having demonstrated that it's been cleaned to get rid of invasive species. This is our drinking water supply. We have one shot and one thing to maintain its quality, and we're in a free-for-all with anyone and anything coming in. There was testimony at the workshop not too long ago that Fish and Wildlife held at the Gun Club, where people were saying if they're having a similar tournament in Massachusetts, say on South Watuppa Pond, if they had 25 boats, they had to hire a Massachusetts environmental police officer. Rhode Island has absolutely no rules of that kind. It's a free-for-all, and we really need to, in my opinion, do whatever we can to protect this source because we don't have another. And I know people have been concerned about the requirement for the bond. There is a requirement in there that people show that they have a certain level of insurance, and I think that's fitting and proper. As someone who drinks the water, we've been told that if it's contaminated and they had to switch over to some other way of supplying us, that we would see our bills quintuple, really, really go up in value, and that shouldn't be on me. It shouldn't be on the town. It should be on the people that caused it. Prior to this, we have no idea if these people would be able to pay for an accident or some sort of contamination event. And I think it's definitely prudent and in the best interest of the people of this town, the thousands of people that get their drinking water there, to actually have something like that so that, again, they are not responsible for someone else causing a problem. So finally, I guess what I would say is that this is not actually even eliminating these tournaments. It's simply trying to regulate them to some extent this year. We can talk later about whether they should actually be going on, period, but they had already been set up, and in recognition of that, what was written is just something that would control them a little better, allow the town to know who's going out there, and to provide some basic facilities and order during the tournaments. And I point out for the longer term, we do have the Department of Health telling us that it is opposed to recreational uses of drinking water sources. They've said that many times in the press, and I think it stands for itself. So I respectfully request that you give it due consideration and strongly urge you to approve it. Thank you.
Joe Souza, 49 Hancock Street. I just wanted to bring out one point that had been talked about years ago with the two water districts, and I think it's came a little more important that if for instance, Stafford Pond was contaminated, that North Tiverton could provide water to the Stafford Pond district and vice versa. I think there's a separation where 24 is. If I'm not, it's been a long time since I've looked at those maps. But that would be something I would urge that the water department should be, I'm going to say federal grants, but I don't know if anyone will be available anytime soon. But that's something that we should be looking at as a town as well. He was just talking about that. I'm just going to say, I understand the sensitivity of drinking water and that pond, but I also know that when I see those tournaments going on, I'm seeing those boats over at the Hess Station filling up, or they're, in the local, you see the boats parked, in the parking lots of the local restaurants around here. They seem to eat at the restaurants and things like that. So let's just keep in mind that, we don't want to lose the little bit of tourism we have coming into town with this. So if we can be innovative and maybe figure out a way to have the first, electric motor tournament or whatever, working with DEM and try to get them, because I don't see any reason. I've been all over that pond with a trolling motor. I see no reason why you need a 200 horsepower Honda on that tiny little pond. I'd be afraid to put it in there with the rocks that stick out. They're lucky they're not taking the lower unit off the boat. But, let's just not try to, to bar it. Let's try to work so that we can keep the tourism and protect the water. And that's my only point.
Thank you. Hello. My name's Joe Medeiros. I live at 1630 Main Road, right on Secana River. And that is my source of water. However, I don't call it drinking water. It's never been clear. It's always cloudy. It doesn't taste well. I don't even give it to my dogs. I use bottled water for my own drinking and for my dogs. I'll shower with it, but I've had it tested recently, just this year. And it appears that whatever is being used to purify it is the equivalent of Clorox, a bleach. And somewhere along the line it's acceptable as suitable water, but if you have it tested and get the results that I did, you won't want to drink it. The problem we have is we took over a pond that was used by the residents who lived around that pond prior to it being a water supply for Tiverton proper. And it was a recreational pond to some sort before it became a water supply. And the two just don't mix. I think the town has got to make up its mind. You can't take the people who live on the pond, who invested money, and restrict them unreasonably, but you can stop people who don't live on the pond from using it. Or set the rules that you want to set to protect whatever water purity that there is there, and I don't think it's very much, but whatever purity that there is, let's not contaminate it anymore. I think someone's just got to bite the bullet and say, this is what we want. It's our water.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Roger Bennis, Narragansett Avenue. Referring to section 15.2C, where it states that $1 million insurance is required, I believe that that 1 million should be increased to 10 million or 20 million. Since an income of $50,000 per year results in an earning power of $1 million in 20 years. $1 million insurance is not going to go very far. All you have to do is semi-cripple one person, and there goes $1 million. And a cleanup of several gallons of gasoline in a reservoir, plus supplying water to half of the town until it is cleaned up, could cost 10 million or more. So I think that a mere 1 million is a drop in the bucket. I have $1 million on my insurance, and I don't go around racing a speedboat to crash into people. In addition, section 15.2F, this section should be listing the maximum gasoline capacity of each vehicle or of each vessel, because that is important, and should also limit the horsepower to 10 horsepower. And it should list the maximum gasoline capacity of each vessel and limit it. Because the more gasoline there is on a vessel, the higher the probability is that you're going to have a major problem with any type of an accident. All you have to do is tip over a boat and dump its entire supply of gasoline into the reservoir, and you'll find out that every gallon makes a very big difference. Related to 15.2F, yeah, I guess I'm repeating myself, the maximum capacity should be added to the Tiverton regulations, since the DEM has been proven to be inadequate in limiting the horsepower to 10 horsepower. Since they don't limit it during the tournaments, then there should be a blanket limit on anybody using the ramp. Tiverton limits to 10 horsepower. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else from the public?
No, you could. I can't see.
Oh, you're talking about the sewage
The
that's on the
sewage
boat.
that the people that are fishing need to use.
I think he's referring to the sewage capacity on the boat itself, which is obviously a problem in the harbor that I guess nobody has considered that problem with the boat that has a sewage capacity on the larger boats, because normally you don't expect a boat that has a sewage capacity to be on a pond like that going down a little boat ramp. But that's another consideration that even I haven't considered that should be added to it.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else from the public? Anyone else from the public? Anyone else from the public? Mr. Tights?
I don't think I have much to add here. Mr. Amatowski described this fairly significantly. And I just point out that, you know, we're not eliminating fishing tournaments on Stafford Pond. We are simply putting in some regulations, most of which are to obtain information, which the record should reflect. We requested this information back in February from DEM, and we never provided it. We believe it may be because DEM doesn't even collect it itself as to who are the names and numbers of the people who are using it. But in any case, we did not receive that information, so we are taking a regulatory information gathering step to collect that information and then provide what I think is a minimum of public safety things. While Mr. Bennis's suggestion of $10 million may be correct about the total liabilities that may occur, I think at this time we're trying to put in some reasonable requirements to begin with. We're trying to balance, not prohibiting. We're not want to do anything that's prohibiting it. Like the filing fee, it's $50. It's not $500. It's the $50 filing fee for the record keeping. It's $1 million on the insurance. The porta potties and the police, we've put the minimum requirements for the public safety, which then gets coupled with the second part of the ordinance, which is charging the Conservation Commission with doing the investigation and research, and that is something also covered by state law, which they're designated, to report back to the council by next fall, well before the next fishing season, as to what further actions are necessary. And maybe perhaps we'll have more cooperation from DEM by then as well.
Okay. Before I go to the council, I just have a question, Mr. Tights. Does this impact the riparian rights?
No. At the moment, it does. Well, unless one of the riparian homeowners decides to have a fishing tournament with more than 6 boats, it doesn't affect the riparian rights. So it doesn't specifically affect riparian rights, and that would be the only possible way it will.
Okay. I will go to the council.
Mr. Mr. President, in the interest of full disclosure, I don't live anywhere near Stafford Pond. I do have one concern, and I think Mr. Tights is correct in suggesting that the ordinance, all of the terms and provisions of this ordinance, are sort of common sense and reasonable. But I did want to get an answer to one question. As part of the packet that we received, there's a letter from Mr. Gonzalo to Representative Edwards, Senator Felag, and Senator Artiano. And it says in part, the first paragraph, "You may recall your attendance at a meeting on February 28, 2013 at the Department of Environmental Management when the above-referenced topic was discussed." And the last paragraph indicates, "We ask if you and your fellow legislators could please facilitate a meeting with the DEM director herself prior to the April 22nd public hearing to continue discussions of our concerns." And I'm assuming that, at least at this point, there haven't been any further discussions. Here is my concern, and I just put it out there. As I say, I think all of the provisions of the ordinance seem common sense and reasonable. But I do have one concern, and that is, at least at this point, without getting a response from DEM, which essentially says no to everything that you're proposing, let's get that first before we throw down the gauntlet. And by that I mean, for example, the reference by Mr. Tights to the second portion of the ordinance, where it's directed the commission, the Conservation Commission, including the Stafford Pond Study Committee, to conduct studies, at least with respect to the following issues. Prohibition of all fishing tournaments by January 1st, 2014. The regulation of the number of boats. The regulation of the type of power source and horsepower per boat. Prohibition of swimming and other activities. Prohibition of depositing any materials into the reservoir. And this is an interesting one, since I never even knew that Stafford Pond could actually be used for seaplanes. But I understand that now. There's prohibition of seaplane activity on Stafford Pond pending response from FAA. Now, while I say all of this seems perfectly reasonable, at least my suggestion would have been, before we put this into the form of an ordinance, let's make sure we have an absolute no, a response from DEM that makes it clear that they're not going to work with us. I would at some point, if we do get a response from DEM, say tomorrow morning, I don't want to be in a situation where we have to gracefully back away from this ordinance. As I say, I support it all. But if I had a suggestion to make, it would be, let's get a definitive answer from DEM before we drop the gauntlet here and make some sort of compromise almost impossible. Just a thought.
Thank you. Before I go to the rest of the council, I know Senator Felag is here, and I hate to put you on the spot, Senator.
Guess that's why I get paid the big bucks. No, basically, I wasn't in attendance at that 28th of February's meeting, and the information or the recommendation that I thought was put forth at that meeting was that there was going to be a small group of Tiverton residents or members that were there present at that meeting and meet with DEM and formulate some sort of recommendations or address the concerns of the community and make recommendations. So I was kind of surprised when I received the letter indicating that the council was moving in the direction of putting an ordinance in place
and I was unsure of whether or not how those small group discussions had proceeded, so that I could know where the hangup was in those deliberations, so that I could move forward and understand clearly what Director Coit was supposed to be there at this meeting about. And so that's why I was waiting till this particular meeting to see what direction the town was going in, because if you remember at the meeting, I sort of made the recommendation that possibly the town could do this on their own if the state wasn't cooperative. And so it seemed like you were moving in that direction, and so I'm kind of concerned and confused as to what's your ultimate goal. Is your ultimate goal to ban total involvement of fishing on that particular pond for the sake of the public drinking water and because of the fact of invasive species, or are you looking in terms of some sort of controlled fishing tournaments where there would be non-motorized boats? So I'm kind of looking for direction from you as to what type of meeting do you want with the director, and did in fact the small meetings that were supposed to take place, which I haven't been privy to, where are you in those small meetings?
Well, I will defer to the town administrator and the town solicitor on that.
So, we've had no contact from DEM as to the small meetings. None of the people who were attending on behalf of the town have received any information from DEM. That's the problem. As to the most recent letter that was requesting the meeting now, Mr. Gonzo, I guess, spoke to Representative Edwards, and the response was that the director is too busy to meet with us. And that's frankly why we put forward the ordinance to get things moving. We did receive a letter from legal counsel at DEM threatening litigation in response to the ordinance, and that's been the sum total of the response. And I believe we have received a list of the dates of the tournaments. There are 19, Mr. Ramatowski can correct me, there are 19 tournaments scheduled, and just, you know, here's the date of the tournament, none of the details. That's what we've received from DEM, and that frankly I think was the feeling why we needed to go forward and at least collect the information on our own, since DEM was either unwilling to share it or unable to collect it themselves.
Well, this is the first I'm hearing of this type of neglect by a state agency, because I thought the town was meeting with the person that set up the initial meeting, and that they would come forth with some sort of recommendations, and if those failed, then we as the legislature would get involved again. So I'm kind of unclear as to how you want me to get involved in terms of setting up a meeting with the director, on what basis and whatever, so I can move forward.
Yeah, if I may. I agree with Mr. Lambert. I wholeheartedly am behind this, but again, I think we do need to speak with DEM. And I'm going to publicly ask you, Senator Felag, if you would intervene and speak with Director Coit and see if we can get this meeting set up as quickly as possible. You know, obviously the drinking water in this town is very important. And I don't think anyone is adverse to having people fish on Stafford Pond, but having 50 boats and 200 horsepower engines and whatnot, I don't think that's what that pond is even built for. And not be able to know how many people are going to be there, how to control it. Those are the issues that we as a town have to know. And what happens if something does happen on the waterway? You know, again, ultimately the town will be, you know, left holding the bag. So I beseech you to intervene on the town's behalf and see if we can get this moving and get a meeting with them as quickly as possible.
Again, that's what I'm here for, is to provide that assistance and to provide that liaisonship between the community and any state agency. So what type of group would be meeting with the director?
Senator Felag, I think it would be similar to the group that was in attendance on February 28th.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Senator. Before we go on, I just want to, we'll continue our discussion on the council, but I will ask that we hold this in abeyance until we either hear whether or not we will have a meeting, whether or not we pass this ordinance or not. But I think we should discuss the issue now. Mrs. Pelletier?
Yes, I'm just puzzled. Does the state have assign different values to ponds? Because Nonquit Pond, which is essentially a water supply, you can't even stick in a fishing pole, and that's just a very recent thing. Before, you used to be able to take a kayak or a non-motorized boat onto the pond, but last year or 2 years ago they changed that rule. So does the DEM have like a class A, B, or C pond, or how does that work?
I think it has to do with the boat ramp.
This is actually classified as the best quality water because of its drinking water thing. The main reason, the difference with Nonquit is that all the land around Nonquit is owned by the water supply by the city of Newport.
Oh.
So they've got the physical way of keeping people out of it.
Right. But drinking water is drinking water. Shouldn't we apply the same standard of what is pollutable or what is whatever?
I think
it
that's
just
what
seems
we're-
puzzling.
I
That's
think
all
we're-
I'm.
I think
That's all
I think we're trying to determine that.
Yes.
Hi, Chi Loriano. I'm a realtor, and I have sold several waterfront homes around Stafford Pond. And there is a booklet. I have a copy of it at my office. It used to be here in the town hall. And in the booklet, it kind of gives a history, as was mentioned tonight. The homes, the waterfront homes, the cottages were there, and then the water was purchased to be used as drinking water. So there was an agreement made that riparian waterfront owners could use any type of boat they wanted. One person is mentioned they had a seaplane there. However, it's clearly mentioned in the book that all other boats entering that pond shall have a maximum horsepower motor of 5 horsepower. Now you can't go around scooting around that pond in a 5 horsepower motor. The riparian property owners, some of them might have larger boats, but they are the property owners. So I think you need to look at that. There is verbiage, there is stuff that DEM has put out for many years. I have a copy. I'll bring it to the town hall so that you can see it.
There are conflicting DEM regulations that say no more than 10 horsepower, and that also say electric trolling motors only. And then DEM, by fiat, has said we are not enforcing those limitations for fishing tournaments.
That horsepower maximum is lifted for DEM permitted tournaments.
It's at 10 horsepower.
The 10 horsepower limit. Yep.
Yes.
Just a point of information, I think you might even consider that we do have a response from DEM in having gone to that workshop at the Sportsman's Club. They were doing or talking about proposed regulations, not for this year, but for next year in 2014. And the only change they made that was in what they presented to the public there was to limit the number of boats that would be in a tournament on Stafford Pond to 20. That's it. Nothing else that's in the ordinance in front of you or the things that we discussed in the meeting are under consideration even for next year officially. So I don't know. I would kind of consider that to be an answer from DEM as to what they think of what was proposed.
Well, I still think we need to meet with them, though.
I just have a simple, stupid background question that maybe Andy can answer. Why is the Department of Environmental Management in the business of hosting fishing tournaments?
We did know that.
It's the Fish and Wildlife Department. I mean, it's a significant revenue generator for.
Is that what they do?
Aside from fishing tournaments, hunting licenses.
Once upon a time, they were different. It was the Department of Natural Resources. So there's the one side, which is that part, the public recreational use, all the parks, Colt State Park, so forth, the boat ramps, Galilee, the ramp, all that stuff is one side of it. It's combined into one department with the other side that regulates Office of Water Resources for water quality, septic disposal systems, and so forth. It's just they happen to be all under one office. And then the Department of Health is kind of off there on the side.
Do they do this elsewhere in Mass, or is it spotty for where they
Do what?
fishing tournaments, stocking of ponds and fishing tournaments?
I think they hold. I think they hold them in other ponds, but they're not drinking water.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know. I'm just wondering how big this, if this is a big, okay.
Yeah, it's a big business.
If I may, what I would suggest is to put your ordinance together and sit on it for a week or two. And if there's no response to DEM, just put it in place, rather than just postpone this whole thing for 2 weeks or a month. Just have it prepared.
Well, it
It is prepared.
And just act on it to take effect as of a certain date if there is no response from DEM. That way you don't have to back away from anything, and you're prepared to go forward with it if they give you a thumbs up or, nose up.
Yeah, well, actually, what I'm going to request is that we have a motion to have this on the last meeting in May.
When do these tournaments start?
They already started.
They have already started.
They've already started.
They've already started.
Yep.
Could I just...
Yeah, wait, yes.
Okay, I think you ought to decide whether you are continuing it with the public hearing open, or whether you're closing the public hearing and only continuing the action.
No, I'm going to make a motion that we continue the public hearing.
Okay, all right, I just want, if you make that, whatever motion, just make it clear so that...
Do we want to address some of this language now, or do we want to wait, do we want to punt on that as well?
Well, I'm assuming if we don't hear from DEM, then we'll address any languages. If we do, we may have to make some changes.
Okay.
My impression was DEM kind of told us if we did go forward with this, there would be legal ramifications. Is that correct, Andy?
I would say that they did suggest, they did threaten, yes.
And that's what everybody needs to know. They did threaten that. Well, no, I agree, but I just wanted, to make public that they have received this ordinance, and they did.
They have.
They did threaten us that they would seek legal.
Yeah.
So have Chief Brakely arrest them when they come into town.
Yeah.
Where is it?
Question.
I'm sorry, could you?
Where is that?
I'm Jim Pelletier. I live at 104 Bonniefield Drive. In some of the documentation that I've been reading, there seems to be some indication that the city of Fall River, the municipality, has some ownership prerogatives as far as Stafford Pond is concerned. And I wonder if in in Stafford Pond, and I wonder if the conversations should involve representatives of the Fall River Water Supply Board. And I would think that from their actions as far as the North Watuppa historically, that they would have some concerns about the water quality in Stafford Pond. And since, if you look at the maps, the topographical maps, Stafford Pond flows into the city of Fall River. So there is certainly some concerns there, I would think.
Okay, I believe, Mr. Tights, I think we had...
Yes, we did look into it. I mean, the actual ownership of the bottom of the pond is uncertain. It is not owned by DEM or the state of Rhode Island, to the best of my knowledge. My understanding is there was a settlement some years back concerning the quantity of water and the dam rights, which are controlled by the city of Fall River. And there has been some communication there, and the city of Fall River does not really care about this aspect of it because they're not using the water. So that's why they're not involved at this point.
I just have Renee Jones, Highland Road. I just have a quick question. If it is between two states, would something, what about federal guidelines to go to the federal? I find it hard to believe that federal guidelines would allow this amount of usage of a drinking. I'm just asking because it's entirely, it's between two states, so.
Well, there is an EPA order concerning this water body, which the DEM may or may not be in violation of.
So maybe that's something we should be looking into, because it might be more stringent than even our ordinance. And if it's between two states, then the federal government would have more of a say, I would think. Maybe, I'm not sure, but.
The EPA does control various aspects of it, but it's not because it's between the two states.
So we should look into what the EPA is also
Yes,
saying.
yes, and we have.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, anything else from the council? Quickly, Roger.
Yes, Roger Bennis. I know that South Watuppa Pond normally flows into Stafford Pond. I don't know if it ever flows in the reverse direction. I do know that there are Fall River.
It's the other way around.
It's the other way around?
Stafford flows into South Watuppa, which flows into the Quikashad.
Well, I know that Fall River has some rights on the flow in both directions, because the Stafford Pond was supposedly abandoned by B.F. Goodrich or some other rubber company like 50 years back.
Roger, it's a boring history. I'll be
I
happy to
know.
go over it with you later.
But the thing is, if the water flows from Stafford Pond into South Watuppa, then I would think that Fall River is interested, because South Watuppa is connected to North Watuppa, which is their reservoir.
No, they're not connected.
They
North and south are not connected at all. All water in South Watuppa goes into the Quikashad. The only purpose that Fall River has in maintaining its an ownership right or claim to the waters of the Stafford Pond is for commercial use. There's absolutely no way Fall River could ever use the water of Stafford Pond for drinking water. There's no way to connect it to its pumping system. You'd have to somehow get the water from Stafford Pond into North Watuppa.
No way.
Which is almost, well, I'll say almost impossible. Somebody just, I guess, is telling me it is impossible. But Roger, I'd be happy
Sorry.
to, don't bore everybody. I'd be happy to go over the history with you.
Okay, anything else from the council? Oh, good.
Brian O'Neill, 116 4 Lane. I might be able to enlighten you guys a little bit about the permitting process. There isn't one. You just call DEM and say, I'd like to have a tournament on such and such a date, and as long as that date's not taken, you get a permit in the mail 5 days later. And I know Councilor Pelletier had questions about where else this goes on. Like Watuppa Pond, South Watuppa Pond in Fall River is every weekend, Saturday, Sunday, 25 to 50 boats. And I've lived on the pond 15 years now, and it's since 2008 we've seen this increasing every year. This year is actually right now less than last year. There was a tournament from May through September every weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and sometimes during the week you'd have them. And the craziest thing is at night. If you know Stafford Pond, it's not a place you want to be at night unless you really, really know your way around. And that's pretty much it for the permitting process. And I've never, on tournament days, I've never seen DEM at the boat ramp. I'm down there on my boat a lot. I've never seen them at the boat ramp. I've never seen them out on the pond. There's no enforcement of any of the rules. And some of these boats do 70 miles an hour, and that's, that sounds like an exaggeration, but 250 horsepower boat, 17, 18 feet, and they are going that fast. And somebody else had a comment on the septic on the boats. There's only as much septic on the boats as 2 or 3 people can hold. There is no, these boats don't have bathrooms or heads or anything like that. But if you're a resident of the pond, it's not uncommon to see somebody relieving themselves out there on the pond. And in fact, there was some stories, I haven't actually seen this, but of a toilet in the woods off to one of the down by the pump house. I didn't see it myself, but that's a story going around. So I don't know if that's true or not, but that's it as far as the permitting process. Make a phone call, get a permit. They don't do any background checks on how many people you're going to have. There were tournaments last year, 35 boats at least. This year I haven't seen any quite that big, but one of the other issues is on these tournament days, they're supposed to be off the water when their permit ends. Say if it's 7 to 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock they're supposed to be off the water. What they'll do is come back, weigh in their fish, and then go back out for a couple more hours. And that's, so they're already breaking those rules. And I've noticed a lot more boats just putting in on the pond since all this has happened, because they go down there, they see all these other boats, big trailers, then it's just kind of become a free-for-all. It's like the Wild West out there some days. And I mean, when you have 35 boats leaving that boat ramp at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, it sounds like Seekonk Speedway for the houses that are directly on the water. Some of the residents are set back more, but a lot of us are right there on the water, and it can be pretty, annoying. And to be honest, also having people fish from me to the counselors away from your dock. I mean, that's a privacy issue, maybe not the top priority, but something that a lot of us residents are concerned with too. So, and that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else from the council?
Just quickly, Mr. President, I just have a couple of points here. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who came out this evening to participate in this public hearing. I think it's important, and I'm really pleased to see a strong show of support here. We are talking about a couple of different things, and I want to make sure we're clear. Obviously, the fishing tournaments catch a lot of the attention because it's probably one of the most visible kind of examples of this recreational use of the pond. I just want to make sure that everyone is clear, at least from my perspective. This is about protecting the long-term water quality of Stafford Pond as a drinking water source for thousands of residents of Tiverton. Whether or not it's 110% the fault of increased recreational usage in the form of fishing tournaments has yet to be completely shown. There's a large amount of indication that might be the case, but I think it's important that we all are aware that we're trying to get to the bottom of what is causing the dip over the last few years in water quality, and in particular the phosphorus level, what is driving the increase in invasive species here. So I just think it's an important point to put out there. I do think that, and I do support Mr. President and Mr. Lambert, the continuation of this public hearing and discussion. I think it's absolutely imperative that we do get this follow-up meeting with Director Coit, so I'd like to thank Senator Fulad for his assistance and all of our legislators with that, because frankly, we need to have to sit down with her and her staff. So I just wanted to put that out there. I do support the continuation, but I really want to make sure that folks understand that this is about getting to the bottom of poor water quality, whatever the reason that might be. And it might be multiple reasons. It might not just be fishing tournaments. So that's the end game from my perspective.
Anything else from the council? Okay, I will entertain a motion that we continue this hearing till May, was the last date of our?
28th.
May 28th.
Which is a Tuesday.
Which is a Tuesday because of the holiday. And again, for all those who are interested, I ask you please come back. And hopefully in the interim we will have had a meeting with DEM and we can either move forward or amend this ordinance. But it's very important to the town that we preserve our waterways and our drinking water.
I'll make a motion that we continue the public hearing on proposed ordinance to Chapter 15, Drinking Water Reservoirs, until our May 28th Town Council meeting. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Continuing the public hearing, proposed amendments to Code of Ordinances, Chapter 78, Traffic and Vehicles, Section 78-71.
This is.
Okay, again, which area are we speaking about?
This is
parking?
Old Stafford.
Is this for Stafford Road, sir?
Old Stafford.
Yeah, if you want. Yeah, I will entertain, we continue this also.
Okay.
I think, no, I don't, I think we could pass this one. This is just parking.
Just parking? Okay.
Yes, what this is adding to the, there's two typographical corrections on the first page as to the no parking areas where, things were named differently before, and with the off-ramps. And then the main change is on the last page, which is adding the area of Old Stafford Road from the south intersection of Stafford Road and Old Stafford Road northerly to a point 50 feet south of pole number 943.
Yeah.
And this would prohibit parking on both sides as a public safety to make sure that ambulances, fire trucks, so forth can get through there. And I'll let the chief talk a little bit further on that.
I did walk the area. There is some geographical sloping and some drainage issues that would also were taken into consideration, but the area that Mr. Tice described is what we would post as no parking.
Okay. Anything from the public regarding?
Chief. I just wanted, these two red corrections on the first page, Connecticut Street and Evans Avenue, I just wanted to make sure we're consistent with your sort of understanding of these prohibitions. Those are the typographical ones we changed. Connecticut Street used to just say Main Road to the bar.
I'm sorry, sir.
Yeah.
Can we?
The first one used to say Connecticut Street South on Main Road, from Main Road to the Barker School. It is now, I think we call it the Senior Center. That was just pretty simple. But the Evans Avenue one I wanted to make sure was consistent because there was some confusion last time. Evans Avenue South, on the south side, from Main Road west to Central Avenue is what we changed it to. It was the west
Was the
ramp.
Well, that was before
24 before.
construction.
But is this still, I wanted to make that correction, but I didn't want to make it in such a way that it conflicted with what your needs were. What do you, nobody cares.
I think we should go back and look at the intersection, just to make sure that, as we're explaining it here, that we're not confusing it, but what we did was just change because of the construction area down there.
Okay.
But,
and that's just on the south side, right?
I think it made the no parking area slightly smaller.
That's all.
Simply because of where the intersection
Yeah.
is central, it's now a shorter distance.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Short of hiring an engineer to go up and down Main Road. I think we're comfortable with that.
With my sticking my nose where it
No,
doesn't belong?
I think we're comfortable with Central Avenue.
Yeah, okay, good.
And I am a big fan of, if you see a typo, if you see something while you're working on it anyway, correct it while you're there. So.
All right. Anything else from the public? Anything from the council? Okay, then I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve, did you close the public hearing? It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. I move that we approve the proposed amendments to the Code of Ordinance, Chapter 78, Traffic and Vehicles, Section 78 through 71, as noted in B2 in our packet.
We have a motion?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'll now close the public hearing on the amendment to Traffic and Vehicles, Section 78-71. Okay, Town Council, sitting as the Board of Licensing, Roger N. DuPont, 28 Salisbury Street, Tiverton. Request approval of annual renewal of private detective license, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Mr. President, Police Department conducted a background check of Mr. DuPont. There are no disqualifiers found.
Okay. We'll entertain a motion.
I would move that we approve the license for private detective to Roger N. DuPont, 28 Salisbury Street in Tiverton for the term of 1 year. 1 year.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor? Motion carried. Alejandro Artiega, doing business as Pelagi's Ice Cream Company, 237 Suffolk Avenue, Pawtucket. Request renewal of peddler's license, subject to meeting all legal requirements. Is Mr. Artiega here? Okay.
I would move that we approve the peddler's license for Alejandro Artiega, doing business as Pelagi's Ice Cream Company for the term of 1 year.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor? Okay, Mickey L. Poulton, 44 Gooseberry Lane, Strong Her Incorporated, 1148 Stafford Road, requests holiday license subject to meeting all legal requirements. Is Mickey here? No.
I move that we approve the holiday license as requested for Strong Her Inc. For the term of 1 year.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carried.
Mr. President. Rhode Island registration EQ 287. You are blocking someone in. Would you please move your car?
Strike two.
Oh, you know, Mr. Ruda. That's twice.
Twice.
Go park at the school, Jim.
Should we add the town hall parking to our list?
There's parking behind me.
I'm parked there. I park in the back. Behind me?
That's moving along tonight, isn't it?
I'm surprised. I'm sure we up here
Should we take a 5-minute recess?
Yeah, you know something.
I don't think we really had anything controversial.
No. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Earth to Mr. Tom. Okay, appointments and resignations.
Did you vote on this?
Appointments.
Unanimous, I have C3.
C3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Council Pelletier, Council DiMedeiros,
Yep.
seconded.
Okay, Arts Committee, 1-year term expiring April 15, 2014. Carolyn M. Hall, 15 Mockingbird Lane.
I move that we appoint Carolyn Hall to the Arts Committee for a 1-year term expiring April 15th, 2014.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Street Advisory Committee, 2-year term expiring April 15, 2014. Audrey Glotty, 195 Crandall Road. Is Audrey here? Hi, Audrey. Good. Why don't you have a seat and be comfortable? I knew Carolyn, that's why I knew she wasn't here, so. All righty. Ms. DiMedeiros. All right, the TV audience and the people here don't have the luxury of having what we have in front of us. So if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Audrey Glotty, 195 Crandall Road in Tiverton. I've lived in Tiverton for 36 years. I've never served on any sort of committee or anything like that in the town. But I have done a lot of research here, and I just feel that the residents here need proper representation for this committee, and I feel I can do the research and make fair and accurate, appropriate decisions.
Great. Okay. Okay, any questions from the council?
No. Be Cecil tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. A younger version.
Yeah, young, very much.
He's going to get mad.
We had a counselor who used to ask the same question. It was, why do you want to be on this committee, essentially? And so that was pretty much the gist of it, right?
Yeah, and are you familiar with the charter?
Are you familiar with the charter? What interested you about
I've been to numerous street committee meetings that have been in place. I did research on a street of a relative of mine, being my father. I know you all know because we're sitting here whispering about it in the background. So I have nothing to hide. I am here to, because I have, not because of this street, but there's residents of this town that I feel need proper representation, and I don't believe they're getting it right now. I can tell you that there's a street called Clare Avenue in North Tiverton that a sign was gone up and put on that says private way. And doing my research on my own street, I found evidence in that vault that says that that street was tried and brought to the town and asked for acceptance, and the town council decided at that time, which goes back to 1966, in the 1960s, they didn't want to accept it at that time. But the property owners did try and turn it over. So I think that extensive research needs to be made. I think that the people of this town, the residents, people who have been there a long time, I've lived here for 36 years. Okay, I lived on one street for 36 years, and we're trying to cut services to people who have had services for all this time. We're trying to say roads are private when they're actually unaccepted town roads, roads that the town has been maintaining for many years, and we're going to try and cut services to those people. I don't feel that that's representing the town, and you people are all elected to represent the best interest of the town, and I don't feel like that's being done with that committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve Audrey Glotty Street Advisory Committee. What is it? Sorry.
Two-year term.
For a 2-year term expiring April 15th, 2014. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced. Is it Glotty?
Second that.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks
Welcome.
very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for volunteering.
Thank you.
Recreation Commission, 3-year term expiring April 15th, 2016. Gary P. Rose, 34 Chase Avenue. Mr. Rose here?
It's reappointment.
It's a reappointment. Okay, I will entertain a motion.
No, go ahead.
Sure. I'll make a motion to reappoint Mr. Rose to the Tiverton Recreation Committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, resignation from the Personnel Board. Alfred F. Almeida Jr., 434 Boogamarsh Road. We received an email from Mr. Almeida, and it says it was to the town clerk. Says, "Hi, Nancy Mello. I wish to provide you advance notice that I will not be seeking reappointment to the Tiverton Personnel Board. I believe my term expires sometime in June of this year, and I hope you have sufficient time to seek and appoint a replacement for my seat on the board. I have appreciated the opportunity these past 10 years to serve the town. I can continue to assist as much as possible until my term expiration, unless you have a replacement sooner. Regards, Fred Almeida." I will make a motion, I will request a motion that we send our thanks and gratitude to Mr. Almeida for serving on the Personnel Board for 10 years and his service, and accept his resignation with deep regret.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and second. All those in favor? Motion carried.
Send him a thank you as well.
Yes, send him a thank you as well. Okay. Unfinished business. Nothing. Financial business. New business. Town Administrator, ratification of Senior Center Director 3-year contract, July 1, 2012 through June 30, 2015. Janice Gomes, noticed per charter.
As you're aware, we had a model contract passed, and I am beginning to establish contracts with all the department heads, and Janice Gomes is the first one. You have the contract before you. If there are any questions, it follows the model contract.
I just have a question for the council, and I did ask Jim this question. In signing these contracts, they're retroactive back to July 1, 2012. And with the new budget coming up, if all is passed as is, come July 1, 2013, do our new pay increases go into effect as of July 1? Well, at least mine, July 1.
Your pay increase, as I indicated, per the contract, will be retroactive to July 1st, 2012, and you will be due again July 1st, 2013.
Okay.
That is my intention with the council approval.
Okay.
So Jim would have to come to the council again for your annual review.
Okay.
Okay, but the contract itself is for a 3-year period.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from the council?
I just have a question on the salary. In the budget, proposed new budget, it had 43,931 as the salary, and this says 45,248. Now, if you add in the longevity, it would be 45,831. So there's a difference between 45,248 and 45,831.
Janice has already received her longevity for this year. So we're talking just about a salary increase here. Next year, there is money in future needs that will correct everything.
What does that exactly mean?
I'm wondering too.
Well, we plan for salary increases
Well, I
and
know,
reviews for the next fiscal year.
Still wouldn't be.
Okay? And all of the salary increases have been lumped into the future needs account.
Right.
Why isn't it just in the salary line?
Because it's sort of like we will be negotiating these things, okay? And if, let's say, for example, I put 3% in all the line items, then that's what they would expect. But it's all dependent on their review. They would expect the 3%, and maybe their performance wouldn't warrant that increase.
Maybe I can explain it a little better. The future needs account has always been set up in order to hold those funds, because again, even though we may have planned for a 3% or whatever, not everyone's going to get it. I mean, we hope everybody does, but not everyone's going to get it. The same token is, so if it's in the salary line at a 3% in the next budget, anybody looking at the budget's going to say, well, that's my salary for the next thing, if that's approved by thing. So that's why it's held in this account, so that if, once they go through their reviews, then we have those dollars already there, so that we can use, to bring that salary up to whatever.
Well, those been given in the past then. Is there a history of this account actually being used?
Yes,
and this, we sort of requested at one of the budget meetings at the community center that we were talking about creating a raise pool rather than baking it into a line item and funding the raise pool at X%, so that it, you take 3% across the board for everybody, say, and then discount it at some percentage, 15% or something like that, and you say, well, that's a reasonable amount of money to put aside for potential raises in the next fiscal year. Which is, we have done that in the past, but I think we've been doing it the other way a little bit more recently. For whatever it's worth.
Does that answer your question, Jim?
Yep.
I guess, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Because, I mean, see, what it is because the budget cycle doesn't follow.
I completely understand the logistics of it, yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why you can't plan for it until you do the reviews and do the contracts and so forth. So we have the money there set aside, should they be approved.
So let me just clarify, ask a clarifying question. This number that's in as year one, is that inclusive of the, actually, never mind, doesn't matter. So I answered my own question, sorry.
Well, I think I remember the question exactly. You were asking about a raise for last year?
No, she's
Would it be
asking-
retroactive for that?
No.
Okay.
July
So
1
what-
coming.
All right, yep.
What she's asking is if she gets another raise.
Okay.
What?
There's one change that I think has to be made to this contract, and we can make it this evening. Let me find it for you. The model contract assumes that everyone gets paid in arrears. Janice does not get paid in arrears. She gets paid up to the date of her employment. In other words, if she works, we get paid on Thursdays. When she gets paid right up to that Thursday, where everyone else is 2 weeks, other people after 2003 who were hired get paid 2 weeks in arrears. So that has to be made corrected here.
What page is that on? It's the second page, the first paragraph, the second to last sentence in the first paragraph.
Stated amount is paid in arrears. And I will make that correction.
What's the new language? Is there a terminology for what that is, or is it just?
I think you just take that.
Paid on a
out.
fortnightly basis. Yeah, there you go.
No, she's on a weekly as opposed to bi-weekly.
No.
No, she's fortnightly every 2 weeks.
She gets paid every 2 weeks, but the pay she receives on Thursday
Includes
includes
Thursday.
Thursday.
Thursday is the end of her week.
Yeah.
Right. And she gets paid right to that Thursday, where everybody else, not everybody, but the newer employees get paid that Thursday, but it's up to
2 weeks.
2 weeks before that.
Yeah.
Just as old times.
Okay.
And Janice, you're okay with the change? Okay, making sure.
Didn't know where she moved.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I would move that we ratify the Senior Center Director 3-year contract from July 1st, 2012 through June 30th, 2015 for Janice Gomes, with the noted change on page 2.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Town Administrator, ratification of Police Chief 3-year contract, September 8th, 2012 through September 7th, 2015. Thomas Blakey, notice per charter.
It is the same situation. We have gone over the contract, and I believe Mr. Blakey agrees, and his salary will be retroactive to 8 September 2012. Here again, it's following the model contract. And request that the council approve.
I guess it was longer ago than that.
Anything from the council?
Just so the rest of the council knows that this agreement supersedes previous agreements, since we did have a contract with the chief that expired September 6, 2014. So this is in the second year of that particular contract.
Just to make it all uniform, please.
All right. That's what we were just.
Okay.
Right, yeah, to make all the contracts uniform.
Sorry, I didn't mention that, but yes, he does have an existing contract.
I didn't think I had been here that long.
Yeah, I know, I was looking at it and saying, wow.
So this replaces that.
Sorry?
This replaces.
Yes.
that.
Right, supersedes it.
That was the first draft of our model contract, so.
Do you have anything to say, Chief?
No, thank you. All set.
I would happily move that we ratify Police Chief three-year contract, September 8th, 2012 through September 7th, 2015, Thomas Blakey.
Second.
That's it.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Town Administrator, ratification of tax assessor three-year contract, December 11, 2012 through December 10th, 2015. David Robert, noticed per charter.
Obviously, it's the same situation, the model contract for David Robert, and this one is retroactive to the 11th day of December 2012.
It's just a typographical error on salary, number 4, the first sentence. I did not believe we are paying you $65.41 per year, so presumably...
Thank you so much, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you.
That's sufficient.
That's quarterly, right? $65.
Wow.
It's fortnightly.
I'm looking at it for you.
That should be a comma rather than a period.
Yes, so noted.
How come you didn't pick that up?
I was quite happy with the 43.
Well, it's actually 40 cents and a half cents.
Yeah.
40.
Yeah, 40 and a half
40 and a
cents,
half
yep.
cents.
Okay.
Do you have anything, Dave?
No, just one little minor thing, which, it really is minor. When I was hired, the discussion was the work hours, where it was 32 and a half, same as my staff. All the department heads put in more than that. I did notice that this contract now is 37 and a half hours. So if you take a look at that, technically, if that was to be enforced over the 32 and a half, I'm actually getting a pay decrease. But I do understand the issue behind that. We all do work the extra hours. I'm in here nights, weekends, as most department heads are, and we do attend these meetings, but I just didn't want to point it out that the hours are increased.
Yeah. If I recall, I think that was to have conformity on the hours.
Yes. Some of us
And it's an
are
average.
40 or more, but,
Yeah.
More or less, the other choice would be 32 and a half.
No, I think
Well, it's
Mr.
just a
Roberts doesn't
place-
have a problem with 37 and a half,
Some weeks are 57 and a half, so.
and we appreciate
Oh,
that.
and all
We
for-
do appreciate it.
All for $65.
I would move that we ratify the tax assessor's three-year contract, December 11th, 2012 through December 10th, 2015 for David Robert.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you.
I would like to thank the town council very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Bids and requests for proposals. Town clerk.
Well, we had that little presentation at the beginning, and I'm just going to reiterate, what we did was bring 3 different firms in. It's difficult to compare as a bid because they all had different ideas of what we could do and how we were going to get the most space in there. So I am recommending that we stay with innovative storage, and I'm asking that you waive the bidding process. The funds for this are all already set. It's not a carryover, so I don't have to, rush through it, but I'd like to get going on it.
Is it the 12,800 quote? Is that the one that I'm,
Yes.
because it's just,
There
it's
is
a
other
different
work
name,
to be
but-
done. We have to get the maintenance director to do some work and little things around it, but this is for the actual shelving.
Got some shoe boxes.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to waive the bid process for vault shelving and award to Innovative Storage and Filing in Providence, Rhode Island for the amount of $12,864.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor? Motion carries. Good. Get your shelving.
Thank you.
Town Administrator.
This is regarding the Pecasset School drainage issue. I understand that test pits were dug along the way, and that there was no ledge or rock found. So therefore, with council approval, I'm ready to go ahead and tell the contractor that he can go forward. He's scheduled to do it in about a week, to put the pipe in about a week. So,
That's the DPW.
That would be actually on Monday. Mr. Clement Rules will be able to start the work on Monday. So of course, we'd probably go forward in getting the prerequisites going forward, notifying boards, commissions, whatever need be, the Recreation Commission, notify them, possibly get the safety fence around the area, so on and so forth. It gives us time to actually get that completed, I guess.
Did we waive the bid on this?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did,
Right.
up to.
We've already accepted it.
Yeah, so we've already awarded it up to, and it was all pending whether or not there was ledge and whatnot.
And the DPW was supposed to weigh in on this also, right? Wasn't he, didn't Steve say that he was going to assess it also?
Yeah.
Right, and it was contingent on if we hit ledge.
Okay.
Yeah, if we had ledge, then it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could I just check that in the minutes, because if not, when I come back, I want to make sure we.
I think
I thought we said up
We
to
did,
whatever.
up to $14,250, as
I
long
did
as we didn't
request
hit
a waiver.
ledge, blah, blah, blah.
And we did.
Okay.
I'm almost positive we did.
That was 2 meetings ago, I believe.
Don't say that's too loud.
Last meeting.
It is, to waive the bidding
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure.
I know we did.
Okay,
Is
so
there
we-
any action that we need to take on that? No, right?
We authorized.
No, we don't already authorize, this was just really an update whether or not we were going to run into an issue that would have brought it above the amount of dollars we had approved. Okay, an update on the request for approval to modify rules and regulations at Town Farm to allow pets on walking track.
Okay, I guess there was a question as to why I pulled that from the agenda, and the reason was that the Recreation Commission had a meeting, and that was on their agenda, and they voted not to allow dogs on Town Farm property. So, going along with that, I pulled the agenda request from the agenda.
Anything from the council?
I remember from the initial meeting that it was pulled from, I think the language stated that possible ordinance change. And when it was pulled, the Recreation Committee voted against it. I still think that the council should discuss the ordinance change itself and have the recommendation from the Recreation Commission on that.
All right, then.
Who proposed the ordinance change?
I did,
Okay.
based on requests that I had
Yeah,
received.
why don't you make a motion to put it on the next meeting?
It's always at this hour, we don't do that.
I'll make a motion
This hour.
to possibly amend ordinance change to allow dogs at the Town Farm walk track.
And to put it on the next.
And to put on next meeting's agenda.
Next meeting
One more
agenda.
time, say that again? I
To
missed
put
that.
the request to modify the rules and regulations at Town Farm to allow pets on the walking track
On the next agenda,
on the next agenda,
so that we can really.
next
talk
meeting.
about it. Second.
Okay, we have motion and second. All those in favor?
And this is just to...
Well, is this only to
These are the
discuss it?
rules and regulations, and what are they, is it an ordinance, or is it...
There's an ordinance on the doors.
Yeah, but we make.
Hold on, just a
This is
moment.
just to have a public hearing.
Right,
Exactly.
Just to have
Yeah.
a public hearing where people can speak. It's not even on the agenda.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm confused, that's what I'm worried
No,
about.
it's only an update,
vote.
and we're just putting it on the agenda for discussion in the next meeting.
It isn't for a
okay?
vote.
Right, and I just want to, the next meeting is going to be a discussion of it, and obviously, if it's an ordinance amendment, it would have to be advertised
Advertised,
21 days
right,
before
yeah.
the public hearing.
Yeah.
Not a public
Before-
hearing.
right,
no.
okay.
But just to give you a chance to discuss it on the agenda.
Right.
Mr.
I would
Rudy,
just-
your motion says to put on the next agenda to
Yes.
schedule a public hearing. Is that what you're requesting?
No, not to
Probably,
advertise, no, just to discuss
right, to discuss
You
the
want to
possible...
discuss first? Okay, I'll
Right.
amend it.
as amended.
The minutes of the Recreation Committee are in
Yes,
your
it's in
packet.
there.
Yeah.
We-
Okay,
And make sure that we have them again, Jim, because I'm sure we'll forget them for the next meeting.
okay.
Or, do they have any form, it's just minutes, they didn't send us anything, right?
No.
Okay.
Okay, council announcements, comments, and questions. Before we do that, I'm going to ask Jay Loriano if she'd just give us a brief update regarding the tolls.
Thank you. Roger Bennett stole some of my thunder earlier. But I do have a couple of things that I wanted to mention. First of all, Tiverton Stop and the Parent Stop thank the Tiverton School Committee for their resolution supporting legislation to prevent tolling on the Sakonnet River Bridge. I also would like to thank very much Linda Lawson. I guess she's chairperson of Tiverton First, and they are supporting the tolls, opposition to the tolls, by sending out flyers to their members, urging them to attend the meeting. And I've been in this town for over 40 years, and from what I can see and what I understand, this is probably the most important meeting that this town will ever have coming up August, because we have a beautiful quality of life. Our neighbors in Portsmouth do, and this bridge is going to be devastating to our quality of life. And I'm a little dismayed when I hear people say, well, it's a done deal, what can we do about it? Because we've had a media blitz by the DOT and the Turnpike and Bridge Association, putting out their press releases, making everybody think that. But it's not. We've got Senator Filag, Senator Oriano, Senator De Palma, Representative Edwards, Representative Canario, I hope I didn't forget anybody, but they have bills that are backed by Piva Weed. Fox is listening, and Jay Edwards said to me when I said, Jay, what else can we do? And he said, get the people there. And we've been putting up flags and banners and calling and making flyers, and if I had the power, I would make Thursday a holiday in Tiverton. And if we showed up with thousands of people, we won't have a toll. Because the only thing that matters to that legislature, I think, is votes at the end, and that's what we have to show them. We have votes. So I'd like to, hope that everybody that can will show up. It's going to be fun. We'll have a chicken there, and yes, and we'll hopefully have a lot of people and just have a good day of it and support the bills that are so very important to us. I do want to thank Solicitor Tights for doing an excellent memorandum. We at STOP found this very valuable, especially the 5th and 6th pages of the, I have to look at the way it's the APA, the Administrative Procedures Act, which we feel that the Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Association violated when they gave us 3 days' notice for the meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago. And instead of the 30 days, according to this, we have seen where they have given and mentioned the same laws that you mentioned in your memorandum when they posted the non-payment of tolls ordinance, and they had, people had 30 days to ask for a meeting, a public meeting, and we had 3 days' notice, and we went there and we couldn't even say anything. We had to listen to what they said and take in what the tolls were going to be, look at a bunch of figures. Some of them were mentioned in thousands that were supposed to be in millions. It was a very confusing day, and again, we feel like we're being railroaded into this toll situation. Tonight, the town of Portsmouth Town Council is considering whether federal court is the next venue to take in the fight against the Sakonnet River Bridge tolls. We're hoping that they do. Again, we've heard, well, I'm not going to go to the meeting because the Portsmouth Town Council is going to file suit. Well, what if they don't? The issue is we have to be there on Thursday. Vitally important. I can't think of anything that's more important than being there and showing support against the tolls. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Okay, so,
yes, Mrs. Black.
I'd just like to speak quickly. The first time that Tiverton and Portsmouth tried to traverse the 2200 span was in 1899 with the railroad bridge. And ever since then, so I consider this bridge a working commercial bridge. People going back and forth to work, coming for medical needs, all the things. The people have spoken. At Portsmouth High School, I was there, and at Tiverton High School, was standing room only. People came till midnight, one after the other, telling their different stories of their different walks of life. People from Fall River came. Jay Edwards and I went and met with the mayor of Fall River to talk to him about the impact on the people of Fall River. So the reason the Tiverton School Committee has it resolved is because the state's always asking us to regionalize, share services, economies of scale. We have the East Bay Collaborative, the Regional Special Needs, the Newport County Mentor, which is filling the skills gap. You say they have jobs we can't fill, so we go out to businesses and say, we have the kids, what do they need to do? These are all things we're doing. 7 buses go 4 times a day across that bridge. We're doing what the state asked us to do, and look what they're doing now. Even if they exempt the buses, the parents who still go over there back and forth. So the reason why I have the chicken over here is because I was listening to Buddy, as I do, and Gary Sass came on. And Buddy was saying, don't go on Buddy if you don't know your numbers. Because he was asking Darlington and all of them, the numbers, what was this going to cost to maintain this bridge? And what are you going to do with all the rest of that money? And of course, they couldn't answer him. So he said to Gary Sass, so why did you do that to Tiverton and Portsmouth, Little Compton? He said, they were the easiest chicken to pluck with the least amount of squawking. So we're here now to squawk, which if you look it up, it's to protest loudly. And we will squawk, and we hope that they will listen. So please, everybody, show up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Sally, put it towards the camera so people can see the other side.
It's both sides.
Both sides, oh, I didn't know it was both sides.
Before we go to the council comments again, I skipped over our town administrator.
Thank you. Rhode Island Public Transportation, RIPTA, is going to have a public hearing on their projected service changes. The times and places are back here on the bulletin board. Anyone interested in attending can check the bulletin board for the time and place. The second item is we received from DEM our landfill license, and it is now good till December 13th, 2014. The prior landfill annual report for 2012 indicated that we recycled 2,035 tons. The landfill, in 2012, we put in 3,300 tons of trash. In 2011, it was 5,000 pounds. In 2010, it was 6,300 pounds. I think that the people of Tiverton, tons, sorry. I think that the people of Tiverton deserve, recognition for the improvements that they've made in recycling over the last 3 years. And it is now projected that the landfill will reach its capacity sometime during 2017. Last item I have is the First Baptist Old Stone Church is going to be considered for nomination to the National Register of Historic Places on Wednesday, May the 8th, 9:30 a.m. at 130 Benefit Street in Providence. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, councilors.
I have a brief.
Pelletier.
I just have a brief announcement. I don't know if this had been announced at the last meeting or not, but it's the time of year again to judge senior projects at the high school. Has this been discussed?
No.
Oh, good. It's going to be on May 29th from noon until 2, and there's a registration at 9:30. They're looking for volunteers. If anyone is interested in volunteering, you can call Peter Forrest at the high school at 624-8494, extension 231. Or you can email him at pforrest, that's P as in Peter and Forrest as in Forest, at tivertonschools.org. If you were interested in judging. It's a rewarding day, and you don't have to go to work, so.
Anything else from the council?
Mr. President, just a quick announcement. I received an email from Gary Plunkett, who's part of our Open Space Commission, and it's just a heads up that I've recommended to him that he try to coordinate an update with the council to have a public presentation by Apex Wind. If folks remember that Apex was part of some of the discussion.
Remember them.
Yeah. So they have recontacted Gary, and evidently they've restarted a conversation with the water districts, and they're interested in coming before the council. So they're going to be in town on May 13th, and so I'm trying to recommend to Gary that they coordinate showing up at our meeting on that day.
They'll ask him to
request
to be on the council.
Yeah,
on the
absolutely.
agenda.
I just wanted to make sure folks had a heads up on that.
Okay. Anything else from the council? Town clerk.
Okay, I just wanted to remind everybody on the financial town referendum. It's going to be held on May 21st. We're going to be using 3 polling locations, District 1, 2, and 4, 3301, 3302, and 3304 will be voting at the VFW. District 3303 and 3305 will be voting at Country View Estates. And District 3306 and 3307 will be voting at Amicable Church. The dockets are available. They've been printed. We're going to be putting some at the library, and we're trying to get them distributed around. We put some in the tax office, some out here. Another date to keep in mind would be May 2nd. It is a Thursday, and it is at the high school. That is the date of the financial town hearing, where, and to date, I only have the Budget Committee's proposal. But they do have until 4 o'clock tomorrow to submit anything. At that time, the Budget Committee and council, and I believe the elected officials have to also be there. They will present anything and the public will be able to ask any questions on the budget.
That's May 2nd?
That's
At
May
what
2nd,
time?
and that is at the high school.
At what time?
That's at 7 o'clock. Oh, I'm sorry, one other note is that we will once again be having our early voting. So we're going to follow the same as last year. We will be having early voting on Thursday, May 16th, Friday, May 17th, and Saturday, May 18th. Early voting takes place only at the town hall. And you need just be able to say that you're unable to make the day of the referendum on the 21st.
Okay, Mrs. Mello, did you give the deadline for voter registration?
We were here working yesterday all day. That was the deadline.
So make sure everyone
So
knew
you
that.
have, if you are not a registered voter in Tiverton, it is too late for the financial town referendum. We well publicized that. We put it in the papers twice. We're putting it in 2 papers. We have done the same advertising as we've done last year. Just doesn't matter how many proposals we get. We still want the people to be aware of everything. And the combined polls, combined districts, that will be in the paper as well, but a little bit closer to the dates.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Lambert.
Well, actually, Mr.
Sorry,
President.
Mr. Tights first.
Yes, well, I didn't have anything on K, but I don't think we need the executive session. Well, no, but I do have something I've got to give you in public. The item number 2 about Stafford Pond was just there as a potential item if you were moving forward, so there's nothing there. If you could move the item for litigation, Town of Tiverton versus LAL Construction Company to K1, I can just take about 3 minutes to hand out some documents.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to move from the executive session, town solicitor litigation for Town of Tiverton versus LAL Construction into the open session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Thanks. Okay. These were actually in the other room to be handed out at the executive session, but I give to you now. They aren't all clipped in packets, so I'll pass them along. Please take one and pass them along. As you know, we had... No, it's not. Take one and pass it along. And the first two items that you're getting are just letters. As you know, the agreement was that they would move the recycling operation off of the property within 45 days while the litigation was pending. These are inspections that were done by the building official and his assistant, confirming that there wasn't activity going on. And this is a cover letter from the attorney representing LAL Construction, et cetera, in which he represents as well. Please let this correspondence confirm that I have spoken with my client and they have indicated that this task has been completed. So therefore, there is no more recycling going on at the moment while the litigation is pending. And we do not have a court hearing on Friday then, since we've been successful in getting the operation of recycling removed while the litigation is pending. Okay. Then with regard to the litigation just received today, and again, I'm sorry it's not a packet sooner, but this is, the first item is, oops, wrong one. This is just the answer of the defendant to our complaint. And they've also filed counterclaims seeking declaratory judgment that the actions that they're doing on the site and want to do on the site are in fact permitted uses. And then this next item is just their request for production of documents to us, that they are seeking a whole lot of information about anybody in the town government who's ever talked to anybody else about their operation, essentially. But that's part for the course of the litigation. So that's where we are. We will obviously vigorously pursue the litigation. That's all I have.
Mr. Tights, I just have a quick question here. Were the site visits by Ms. Roy and Mr. Ames scheduled, or were they unscheduled?
No, they were
random?
unscheduled stakeouts, essentially.
Okay.
We had received word that they were not doing it, but we wanted to double check it as well. So Mr. Ames went in the afternoon, Ms. Roy went in the morning, parked outside watching for any signs of activity.
And there's nothing on site?
Well, there's no recycling, from what we can tell, and their representation, there's no recycling of the material. The recycled stream of materials from Fall River is no longer being processed and transferred at that site. Okay. There is still other activity going on that has been going on for some time, such as the composting and the blasting, and we're still agreeing to disagree on that in court. But the recycling was the one that we had the most concerns on for public health and safety, and that has stopped.
Are we going to have spot checks to make sure it stays that way?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Oh, I got, yeah. I think they all got screwed up. I got Brett's.
Okay, anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay. Before we adjourn, then, I would ask Mrs. Mello if you could get that letter for the Boston City Council so that the councils can sign it.
Yes, certainly.
I'm sorry, I wrote over that.
So I'll have to lay out and type it, I'll do it in 2 minutes.
Okay. All right, then we'll do it after.
Don't leave everybody.
Yeah, don't everybody leave. We need to sign that. Okay. With no further business, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.